is Lead the Way, Equipping Students with Leadership Skills That Matter in the Workforce. And our presenters are, sorry, you guys' names, I need your, oh, there you are, Alyssa Reidhead, did I say that right? And Jillian Morley, so.
Well, thank you all for sticking around for our session. We're very excited to be here and to talk with you all, and I hope you've had a really great day of learning so far with school just around the corner. So do you want to kick us off with your introduction?
Sure.
Okay.
So my name is Alyssa Reidhead. I am a professional practice assistant professor in the Nutrition, Dietetics, and Food Science department within, I guess, our new college of CAS and NR together. I'm not sure what it's called yet, so I should get that down. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I teach primarily food service systems and management in dietetics. I'm super passionate about leadership and entrepreneurship, and in dietetics we focus a lot on competency-based learning, so we'll kind of talk through some of that a little bit later.
And I'm Jillian Morley. I have worked with Alyssa in her classes when I was in the Career Design Center here at the Logan campus, and I just recently moved over to Human Resources doing organizational development and training. So I really care about people's career development, so I've spent like 10 years helping students in their career development, and now I get to help our staff and employees here at Utah State with their career development. So with the Career Design Center, I was assistant director there for a while. I'm also a Gallup certified Clifton Strengths coach, and you'll learn more about what that is as we go through our presentation with you. And I'm really thankful that Alyssa wanted to partner up and talk about how we help students with their leadership development. Okay, a quick agenda for us today. We're going to start big picture of just, career readiness amongst our students and what employers are looking for and what's motivating students to attend college. And then we're going to dig into leadership specifically, as well as emotional intelligence, and then looking at Alyssa's class, how she's incorporated it with her students, and how I came in with the Clifton Strengths assessment to help facilitate that. So we'll also go through the implementation ideas and then how you can partner with the Career Design Center if you want to do something similar. So, oh, it's me, okay. So, yeah, I'm on for a while. Okay, so the Career Design Center partnered with an organization to do a survey called the National Alumni Career Mobility Survey. And we talked to alumni. The survey went out and talked to alumni from 2013, 14, 15, 22, 23, and 24. So if we do it again, we'll hit those middle numbers. But we were looking at alumni that are 5 and 10 years out from graduating. And through that survey, we were able to look and see alumni attended Utah State because they wanted to have intellectual gain, career success, and financial gain. It was really amazing to see across the years that we did this survey, from all of those graduating years, these are the reasons students were here. And it's not that these were in competition with each other, it was more of they came for this collective experience so they could achieve all of these things to have a better life after graduating from Utah State and career success as well. So, we want to be able to support students on all of these things and working together to facilitate that. Leadership skills is within here. So there's an association, it's the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and this is a collection of colleges and universities across the United States as well as employers. And basically back in 2015, they came together and they wanted to just understand collectively what should students be graduating with as they go out into the workforce? What competencies, what skills should they have so that they're ready? And how can we at colleges and universities better prepare our students for that workforce? So the whole group of those individuals through NACE, that association, they did a really big research project and boiled it down to these 8 competencies, and leadership is one of them, which we'll really focus on today. So they also spent a lot of time with this task force of defining what those are, as well as sample behaviors. So we can really help students understand, what does leadership look like when you're talking to an employer, or what is an employer expecting around professionalism or teamwork. So we can all, as an association and as a university, help students develop each of these. And they do these so often already, like in their gen ed classes and, all of the classes that you all teach, but helping students connect the dots, that you're doing a group project or you're writing that paper, it's helping you with these certain competencies. So then looking at it a little further too, emotional intelligence comes into play with leadership. And emotional intelligence is the ability for someone to understand and manage emotions, and they can be a really great leader when they can recognize and influence the emotions around them and, like harvest and collect that emotion and use it for really great teamwork, to help them create really safe and welcoming and collaborative work environments. That emotional intelligence can really help build trust too. All signs of great leadership, right? We want those leaders to be able to do that for us. So the emotional intelligence too is really important because it's essential for becoming adaptable. And as we know, the workforce changes constantly. Like one of the big ones that we've been watching for a while is all of the layoffs in the tech industry, and helping students navigate that change, but helping them also right now know you don't know what changes will come in your selected industries. So building those skills now to be adaptable and resilient to take on those challenges and help themselves, but also help the teams that they're within, and then eventually the leader of those teams. Okay. So one of the, oh no, it's you. Sorry.
Can you guys hear in the back? Like, is it projecting? It doesn't project up here. Okay, so I want to start out with this video. One of the things I use in my class are called habitudes. And so the first one is the iceberg, and it relates to leadership. So I want to just start here.
The iceberg is the first rule of leadership. It's a picture of how genuine influence works in relationships. The 10% that lies above the waterline represents my skill. It's visible, people can see it. But the 90% that lies below the surface represents my character. It's hidden to the naked eye at first. It represents, however, the majority of my influence. When people think about leadership, they often jump into the topic of skills or talent. But real leadership doesn't start there. I believe lasting leaders are built from the inside out. It's first a matter of self-leadership, learning to lead myself before I try to lead anybody else. That's the bulk of our leadership. Other skills come later. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't see a picture of an iceberg without thinking about that tragic story of the Titanic. Do you remember that story? The Titanic was called the unsinkable ship. The captain even stood on the deck of that ship before it launched and said, "Even God can't sink this ship." By the way, not a good thing to say just before you take off into the deep waters of the Atlantic Ocean. But it was sunk by an iceberg. That's the story we all know. The story you may not know is this. The iceberg was not a surprise. On April 14th, 1912, the Titanic received 5 explicit warnings about icebergs. No one paid any attention. And when the 6th and final warning came in the wee hours of April 15th, the telegraph operator wired back 4 simple words. Shut up, I'm busy. Those were the last words he transmitted before hitting the iceberg. And 30 minutes later, the ship had hit and began to go down. Hundreds of people unnecessarily lost their lives due to people not paying attention. They assumed they were unsinkable. Far too often, this story illustrates our lives. How many times do we get warnings from friends, parents, teammates, teachers, or employers about our character flaws? And how many times do we respond with the attitude, shut up, I'm busy. I've got too many things going on in my life. And so we fail to notice the small but real holes in our character. In fact, we say things like, I only cheated on one answer on that exam. It's not a big deal. Or, it was only a little white lie I told. It didn't hurt anybody. Or, I just took a little petty cash from the box. They're rich here. They'll never notice. And then, over time, we start a trajectory and become a person we don't even like or respect. Now, no one wakes up in the morning and plans to have weak character. It doesn't start with you or I deciding to rob a bank or embezzle money or commit murder. It usually begins with small acts of poor judgment that lead to larger acts of poor character. Like the small slits the iceberg made in the Titanic that led to the leaks that sunk the ship, all the damage was done below the waterline. There's actually good news and bad news about icebergs. The bad news is it's what's below the surface that sinks the ship. The good news is it's what's below the surface that supports the tip. When you and I build robust character in our lives, such as a strong set of values, a solid sense of identity, and consistent self-discipline, those characteristics hold us up and keep us in the game over the long haul. I have a friend who...
Okay, so he goes on, but we'll stop there. So I just wanted to kind of ask you, in your classes, do you spend 90% of your time building character or skill, right? In dietetics education, we spend a lot of time building skills, like a lot of time. And I think sometimes this 90% of what gets people jobs or what helps people be a better leader or what helps people develop emotional intelligence doesn't even really fit into our curriculum. And so I kind of want to rephrase this and put it into context that Utah State University educators don't wait for leaders to come along. They seek out students with leadership potential and expose them to experiences that develop that potential. And that's kind of your role, that you have the opportunity to seek out students that have leadership potential and expose them to things that will help them develop that potential. All right, so we have a poll everywhere. We're kind of a small group, but we can chat and we can also fill this out. So if you scan this QR code, it's going to take you to this image, and this is an image I like to use a lot in my classes that kind of summarizes what leadership is. So teamwork, it's motivation, it's competence, it's skill, it's responsibility, communication, power, and support. And think of power as kind of like influence. So if you scan that, you can actually click on the image of what leadership skills you feel like you already focus on in your classroom. Is it working for anyone that's, maybe it's not active? There it goes. Nope. Sorry. Not right. Activate there. Okay. It's cut off at the top. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay, so we're getting some motivation, some competence, some skills, some responsibility, and some communication. Does anyone have an example? We're a pretty small group. It's the end of the day. We're all tired. Does anyone have an example of like what they're already doing related to one of these? An assignment or something like that? Yeah.
So I teach business classes, and so leadership is actually several weeks. My classes combined. So I do spend a lot answer situations, and so I found that using things like ethical dilemma really helps students take a step back and kind of identify those strengths that they have in these incredibly difficult situations.
Yeah, we're going to even build on that a little bit more too. Some of that, their confidence, right? Anyone else have an example? Yeah.
In my labs, I split them into teams, and I have them take turns being the team leader, right, being in charge of a project. I've seen a lot of success with it.
Yeah. You give them the opportunity to kind of use those skills where I've actually found students will step up. Like, I try to pitch it as like, hey, if you haven't ever taken on a leadership role, here's like a low stakes way, like that you could try, right? And usually they'll step up and try that. Cool. Okay, so if we go back here, I just want to hit a little bit on some leadership skills that are used by professionals within the dietetics field. So Emily Patton, who works down at BYU, actually did this study, and she interviewed dietitians and asked what leadership skill that they were using most in their current workplace. Now, by nature, in dietetics, I literally teach management and leadership in dietetics. So it's integrated into our curriculum. So students or dietitians, professionals should have like the base knowledge of those skills. But this is what they identified as how they use their leadership skills. Most of them don't end up in a formal leadership position. They just don't. It's just our students are usually like helpers, and they're not striving to be the CEO of anything. And so they just said like demonstrating a positive attitude was the most ranked. They found that as a leadership skill, that demonstrating a positive attitude, engaging in the mastery of their knowledge and skill, knowing the current research and how to improve patient outcomes, how to cope with stressful situations, how to demonstrate appreciation for others, and how to maintain relationships. So sometimes we think of leadership as this like really abstract thing that we're not teaching, but if we taught our students how to maintain relationships with others or how to demonstrate a positive attitude, that is building their leadership skills. In the same way, kind of the same study, in addition to looking at educational experiences of dietetics students, they found that like students knew the base of what leadership was, but they lacked a leadership identity. And that term kind of took me down this rabbit hole of like, what is leadership identity? And essentially in the blue, it'll show you it's just what you bring to the table as a leader. So like you might understand leadership, but what do you have to offer? And they didn't know that. Like they knew what leadership was, but not what they had to offer to people. And so how to build a leadership identity is kind of grounded in this theory of developing a leadership identity, I guess. And the first part is that adults actually recognize a student's leadership potential first, right? So they say something like, hey, I noticed that you're really good at that. I noticed that you are a good communicator. I noticed that you demonstrated a positive attitude, and they just say that to them. So that's one way as, you know, a faculty member that you could help your students is just telling them what they're good at. And then from that, they actually used adults or family or peer to help them recognize their strengths and where they needed more attention. And eventually, as people kept telling them, they needed less external affirmation, and they became self-directed. So they said, like, I'm going to go ahead and do this because I feel confident in these things because I've done them in the past, and I'm going to go ahead and do that anyway. And then adults continued to model these behaviors, and then same-age peers also served as a role model for them. So they said, like, hey, this person's doing that, that's really cool, and I can also do that. Then finally they get more involved, and that could be like in teams or even academically, and they kind of formed this idea that like I learned it's not just about me, it's not just about my achievement, but it's about the group's achievement. And then there was structured opportunities for critical reflection about their leadership skills. And so that that reflection could be with a parent or a sibling or a faculty member or an adult or peer that they trusted, and they kind of thought about what they did and what they brought to the table as a leader there. And so that helped them to really form this leadership identity and essentially confidence in their skill. And so we can brainstorm this, or maybe we'll just brainstorm it instead of pull everywhere. We're pretty small. So I want to gather brainstorm ideas. I think it's really helpful to learn from others about what ways you're building or you would like to build student confidence, and therefore a leadership identity. So students can go and be like, I'm really good at this, and I bring this to the table, and they can tell the employer that with full confidence that that's ingrained in them. So what ways are you building student confidence or want to build it in your classes? And I think we can just shout out some answers. Me and Katie both teach dietetics students. If you haven't had a dietetics student in your class, you might just not know, but they're the top. They're always the top. They always want to know what's the best. They want 100%. If they got docked 1 point, that's not acceptable. They're just very rigid. And we love them for that also, because they're very easy to teach. What else?
Our entire program is developed on creating leaders for the Air Force. And I think what's great about our specific program is we have cadets run it. It's not myself going and creating all the programs or creating all the events. The cadets take it, run with it. We just guide, mentor, and shape what's ethical and legal.
Yeah.
They go through the process. So we give them the left and right bounds, and they actually run the program, which is a very exciting experience.
Yeah, you're right here. You're the involvement in experiences, right? And helping them gain confidence. If you do it once, you're more confident the next time, right? It's less scary. And it's pretty low stakes now compared to if they were an officer, and then it's a little higher, right? What else? Yeah.
So I teach in equine assisted services, so horses, and developing instructors to teach people with rare disabilities and whatnot. And I try to give them tons of low-stake opportunities to take charge. There's a class where they're the instructor for half the days they're teaching their peer and vice versa, or they're in charge of training a horse. And I say, you got to do these things today, but I don't care what order you do it or how you do it, because it depends on you and your horse in the moment. And I find beginning this semester, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to know exactly what you want. And there's not a perfect answer. And by the end, they're developing and designing lessons and training sessions, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I know what I need to do now here. But I don't start out with the big exam. We start out with the little opportunities, so that when it comes to high stakes stuff, they're a lot more confident because they've done it.
Yeah. And like our dietetic students that really want the concrete things, that doesn't always help you grow, right? Doesn't help you always feel that confidence. Sometimes you need those stepping stones, but if you can make it on your own, you're more confident, right? And you have more of a leadership identity. Okay.
Okay, so one of the tools that I've helped Alyssa use in her class is an assessment called Clifton Strengths. Has anybody taken this assessment before? A few? Okay, so basically Clifton Strengths is an assessment administered by Gallup, and back in the day, so Gallup's, they've been studying human behavior for over 75 years, and they really want to understand what makes people successful. And so there was an individual, his name was Don Clifton. He was a psychologist, and we consider him the father of strength psychology. And basically he wanted to know what happens if we stop focusing on what is wrong with people and start focusing on what is right with them. focusing on their strengths. What are they good at? How can we leverage that and maximize that so they can reach their potential? So Gallup picked this up with Dawn, and they've created the assessment as it is today. And so now over 500 Fortune, or over 90% of Fortune 500 companies have used strengths in some way. It's used internationally, but we use it here a lot at Utah State with students through the Career Design Center and partnering with faculty. So it's basically a 45-minute assessment that students complete online asynchronously, and there's 34 themes that can come up, and their reports tell them, here's your top 5 themes. These are your top 5 strengths that we've identified from these 34. And then the report is so cool. It goes into a lot of depth about what that means. So if one of your top strengths is analytical thinking, it gives you a really great document all about what does that mean for you as an individual. I know there's a lot of assessments out there and they might feel generic, like lots of cut and paste descriptions. This one's really unique in that it generates reports very individualistically, like no report is the same. So Alyssa and I might share a strength in common, but our descriptions are totally different. I think we both share discipline is one of them, or empathy even. And even as we've done this with the dietetics students, their top strength typically is achiever as a collective group, but then if we look at their reports together, it's so different of how one person uses achiever as a strength versus another. So it really helps a student identify, and an individual identify their unique patterns, how they think, how they behave, how they find success. And so through this report and this like workshop that we do in Alyssa's class, we really help a student understand their potential and how to talk about it, how to acknowledge it, because sometimes they're like, yeah, I already knew this about myself, and I'll be like, well, do you know how to tell an employer about it? And they usually don't. Or they'll be like, wow, yeah, I had no idea that this was actually a strength. I thought it was something everybody did, but apparently not. So it really helps them articulate it and really think consciously about what that means and how they can improve themselves, how they can show up as a better leader, for example, using their strengths, so that they find more success and have a higher quality of life in all of the different areas they have responsibilities in. So, yeah, like with Alyssa's class, I have them do the assessment before I come in to do a workshop. And in the workshop, it's just like magic of hearing them talk about their strengths of what they've discovered about themselves, hearing them share similarities and differences, helping them point it out to each other. Sometimes someone will say, I don't think this is really my strength, and then others where it's a close group of students, they'll be like, no, you do this or you do that, and help them see their potential in each other too. So it's a really cool tool. It's like a really great practical way to help a student identify those skills in themselves and build the confidence to see examples of it, how to articulate it to employers, things like that. What else would you add about using the assessment in your class?
I think it's just a way to help students build that leadership identity, like give them like wording.
Yeah.
Fit. And we hear all the time, I thought that was a weakness, because my students by nature are really rigid and achievers, and some of them have some behaviors I think concerning. And so they're like, oh, I thought me color coding my wardrobe was weird. And then like everyone in the class is like, oh, I also do that. And so they just are like, but I can use it this way, and that can help me. And so they just get this, like, where the world focuses on that being a strength, they get this confidence in it being their strength,
Yeah.
not a weakness.
Yeah.
So, sorry to interrupt, but Clifton Strengths does that cost money I thought?
Yes. So,
An educational discount?
yes and no. So as a certified coach, I get so many discounted codes a year. but typically they're going to be $24, $25 each. So there's a whole slew of certified coaches across the university though. So there's, like, I know there's a couple in the dietetics department too, like they might have discounted codes that they can share, but usually, like in your class, did course fees cover it in yours?
Yeah, I run
Okay.
into course fees because when you buy a bulk amount of codes together, you have access to their reports.
Yeah.
So you can make a diagram of how everyone interacts with each other, or even build teams in your class based upon those codes. So I built it into course fees and never gotten any sort of pushback. So that's how it's
Yeah.
an integral part of my class. So that's how I pay for the cost.
Yeah, and when I've done it with classes, usually it's through course fees, but I've also done it with student clubs where they might have a budget where they can support that for their students. Some departments want their student employees, for example, to do it, or even their staff in general. So usually we can find ways to help support it so that it's not coming from the individual's own pocket. Yeah. But because the cost can be a barrier, but we don't want it to be. We want to figure out a way to make it work, because we see a lot of potential in individuals, not just students, but employees as well to use it. So, good question. Other questions on that part of it? Okay.
Okay, so Jillian kind of hit on it. So I do this in my undergraduate classes and then in my graduate classes as well. So most of my undergraduate students continue on to be graduate students because that's how you get the RD credential. Like, you have to complete graduate education. So I complete the Clifton Strengths assessment in the undergrad, and then we do the activity where Jillian has come and done that. And then they reflect on that in a leadership reflection paper. And then I kind of continue that in the graduate level. So they've already completed the assessment, so they don't need to do that again. Jillian didn't mention, but it's not worthwhile to continue to take this more times. It's not a retake thing. So then I actually do an in-depth session on strengths and have them pull a job description of a job that they would like to have in the future, and then take one of those job responsibilities and link it to how their strengths help them in that job responsibility. So it really connects the dots of like what they bring to the table as a leader, but also as a dietitian, and how that can help their employer as well. So I wanted to kind of give you some actual student feedback about what I've gotten. I've done this assessment, I've taught this for 6 years now, but last year I decided to actually collect some information. So I had 27 students, and you can see the light blue is definitely agree, and the dark blue is somewhat agree, and then neutral. Nobody ranked anything lower than that. So a little context, my students are getting ready for their graduate school interviews at the beginning of the semester that I teach this course. So I actually moved my content around to put this at the beginning to give them real language to use in those graduate school interviews. And they ranked almost all 25-ish of them said they liked it at the beginning of the semester to give them that verbiage. They said it helped them better assess their leadership skills. Again, over 20 people. It gave them valuable insight to the verbiage for grad school interviews. It helped them be more confident in their ability to be a leader. And then I think that one at the end really summarizes it, that it's a valuable use of class time. It's not on their registration exam. It's not meeting a core competency for accreditation, yet they still feel like it's a valuable use of their time. And then I had them rank it. So these are some examples of what I do in my class activities, and it was the number one activity from the whole semester. They loved it. It was one class period, and they ranked it the highest. So just to give you an idea of what students might like to see there. And then Jillian will talk about partnering.
Yeah, so if you're interested in not just Clifton Strengths, but other ways that we can help support your class around any of those competencies to help students feel more confident going into the workforce, you can partner with the Career Design Center. So we've got a program called Career Design Champions, and basically you can sign up for a newsletter so you stay up to date on different events we're putting on or different topics of the month so that you can share resources with your students. And also we usually put in some professional development for yourself too. We also do workshops in your classes. So if you want to request one, you can fill out a form with us and we'll really work with you to make sure it's tailored to your goals, your students. So we don't just like copy paste from one class to the next. We want to make sure it's really specific to your needs. We also have a lot of asynchronous content that you can copy into your Canvas class. So we know your class time is really valuable, and if you don't have time to carve out, you can take some of our content, copy it to your Canvas class, let students know it's there. We're happy to share whatever we can in whatever way that we can. And you can also just do a quick consultation. If you want to just talk about, here's what I teach, here's what I'm kind of thinking, I don't even know what I would want to incorporate, we'll collaborate with you and figure out what might be the best method for your class that semester. So there's a team of career coaches that are all, assigned to the colleges so we can really partner with you and learn about your industries. So lots of great ways. We got a couple of our coaches here. So we have Elena and Lene. Lene is our statewide assistant director, and then Elena is one of our coaches here at the Logan campus. So a whole handful of us that can do that. Well, not me anymore, but I'm not used to saying it yet. But a whole handful of career coaches and specialists that can collaborate with you to figure out what would you like to tackle, and with all of that legislature pressure of career outcomes, and we want to figure out how can we support you to lessen the stress, how can we maximize what you already have going to help our students be successful. So, okay.
We'll just wrap it up here. Just AI wrote this for me. Do you guys love AI? I just put it in and out it came. I modified it a little bit, but I liked what it said about emotional intelligence and leadership skills are important, and cultivating self-awareness and empathy prepares students to lead effectively. And faculty play a vital role in that, in developing potential and creating opportunities for growth. And then partnering with the Career Design Center can bridge classroom learning with real-world experience and equip students to thrive. So I really feel like, if anything, just know that you have influence over your students, and telling them what they're good at can build their leadership skills in like the smallest way and help them to identify as a leader in the workforce. So
I want to say one more thing. Yep. I forgot to mention it. So, oops, sorry. In that survey that identified like intellectual gain, financial success, career success, it also identified that faculty are the #1 resource students go to for career advice. So where we know students are coming to you, we want to make sure you feel as confident as possible too in preparing your students to enter the current workforce. So it's like faculty and then academic advisors are their #2. So we would love to partner with you to help you with anything we can. So thank you, and thank you, Alyssa.
any questions? We have 5 minutes till 5 o'clock.
We win because we're giving you time back.